Welcome to Blind City. I had to lose my sight to find my vision.
Are you blind? Are you blind? Open your eyes. They lying every time, so I don't trust men, only trust God. I had to lose my sight before I could see the light.
Welcome to Blind City. See, Blind City is a condition. Crime, racism, and poverty. We have to put the word neighbor back into hood. I had over 31 surgeries and lost my sight and fight to glaucoma. I tried killing myself 3 times in one day, and I was unsuccessful. And then I heard a voice tell me, use your weakness as a strength to inspire and create awareness through Blind City, the podcast. I will address the issues that are plaguing our society, like poor education, that are turning our broken neighborhoods into the breeding grounds for prisons, bootleg preachers, crooked politicians that have my people dancing like strippers in the community. Let's talk about it, or we can flip tables like Jesus. Welcome to Blind City. This is Blind City, the podcast. I'm your host, Langford Cunningham, along with Dr. Porter. We are the therapy for these streets. And like I said before, the most dangerous man in the world is a blind man with a handgun. Welcome to Blind City. I'm your host, Langford Cunningham. We are the therapy for these streets with Dr. Porter. I had to lose my sight to find my vision. I got my co-host, the triple OG, Mr. Sims. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Dave Langford?
Man, I'm blessing blind, man. We're going to get right to the point. I got a special guest just pulled up to the city. Linda, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mr. Cunningham. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for pulling up to the city. Can you let the citizens know the name of your organization and what does your organization do for the city?
Yes, sir. So, again, I'm Linda McQuarrie, and I work for the Coalition Against Trafficking and Exploitation, also known as CATE. We are the coalition for the state of Missouri to bring folks together who are working with victims and survivors of trafficking, and to also make sure that this important issue is in the forefront of legislators, law enforcement, prosecutors, social workers, and all those folks.
Great. I thank you for your service to the community, your organization. Let's get right to the point. It's a lot of women that have been missing inside our region, from Missouri to St. Louis City, even from the suburbs to the hoods, rural areas. But I want to get real specific in the hood with black girls.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think that lots of individuals are at risk to be picked up off the street and trafficked for sex. I think that those that are living in poverty are at even a greater risk, because a lot of times, individuals have to make some decisions in regards to how they can stay safe. And sometimes even their home environment isn't safe for them. So they leave. And what we know is about 30% of kids, once they run away from their home that first night, that they are propositioned for sex. And a lot of these individuals think that they're going to be safe, but what ends up happening is they're forced to perform sex acts against their will, and they're in a situation to where they just can't leave. And so, yes, trafficking can happen to anyone, but our kids that are in poverty areas are at a greater risk.
But why is there a disparity with the race, though? Why does it seem like if a little white girl from the rural areas or the suburbs is missing, the helicopters come out, the bloodhounds, you have a $50,000 reward. But in the city, if a black girl is missing, if a black girl is missing, you get less attention. And then sometimes they don't even think it's sex trafficking. They'll say, "Oh, she's a runaway. Oh, she's from a dysfunctional family. She ran off with a boyfriend." Why is there a disparity in the race? Why we just can't look at it as both victims are women, and why we don't treat it as such?
We recognize that these children are being hurt. I've been working in child protection all my professional career, and people just don't want to admit what's happening to our kids in St. Louis, in Missouri, across the nation.
Well, what I find kind of strange, is, though, we have a particular town in St. Louis that has a lot of girls missing out of this city, Berkeley, Missouri.
Yeah.
What's going on with that, Linda?
I can't speak specifically for Berkeley, but I do know from individuals that I've talked with that kids are missing in Berkeley. We're not hearing about it. I mean, I've only heard about a police raid in a sex trafficking ring out of Berkeley at a mobile station. Recently, and that wasn't through the popular media. That wasn't on the common news channels. It was in a report that wasn't in our common media.
And that place is still open today. And the man that they charged for sex trafficking, he's back working in the service station. Let's talk about it, Linda. Let's flip tables like Jesus. What's going on out here?
I don't know. I don't know why that's happening. I don't know. I wish I could tell you specifically to that case.
Well, I'm going to tell you. I reached out to Berkeley Police Department. Police Department. Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
And I talked with the chief of police. Mm-hmm. And I invited him to join us today. Do you see him?
No, sir.
That's what goes on in the black community. You don't see them. So when I asked him the question, he told me the numbers of black girls that are missing out of Berkeley. And if you Google this on your phone, it would say about 400 girls.
Oh.
Out of so many years, 400 girls are missing. Now, he told me those numbers were fabricated. I said, well, why don't you come on the show and let's talk about it? Mm-hmm. Linda, do you see them?
No, sir.
That's the problem. Mm-hmm. That's the problem, Linda. But anyway, tell me more about your organization. Why the name Kate?
So that name was created before I joined up with the crew, but I think it's just we wanted to let people throughout the state of Missouri know that the coalition wants to address this problem of trafficking and sex exploitation. We want to do training. People are becoming more familiar with it. But now that we can know what the term means potentially, how are we going to respond to it? So I hope to reach out to law enforcement. I hope to reach out to the chief in Berkeley and sit down and talk about how we can identify these kids. And once they're identified, how can we help them to where they can lead the life and they can have safety, and what provisions they need. A lot of these kids have experienced trauma. And I know you've talked about this because I listened to a podcast not too long ago where you and Dr. Porter were having this conversation. And trauma really affects all of us.
Facts.
But individuals that live in a violent community or they experience poverty are likely to experience more complex trauma that really affects these kids and grown-ups. And we need to bridge our mental health to support individuals that may not typically trust a system because of how they've been treated historically. We're hoping to have these conversations. This is why I was so excited when you called me and excited to learn about your podcast, because you're approaching these issues that we need to be talking about openly. I can't solve it by myself. I can't answer all the questions, but I want to be at the table, just saying, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Facts. And I thank you for coming on to the city and
Thanks.
telling everybody about your nonprofit and what you're doing in the community. And yeah, we're here to clean the streets up, Linda.
Yes.
You know, the pastor's not doing their job in the city. Jesus was in the streets with the people.
Yeah.
Jesus wasn't in the church. Jesus was in the streets. And I'm in the streets touching the people. And the people telling me, man, they got a lot of women missing out of Berkeley, bro. And there's no media attention on it. There's no light. Put the light on it. So that's what I'm doing, Linda.
I appreciate you all talking about this because I think we all need to talk about it. It becomes less scary when we talk about it. But I also think that everyone, no matter what color you are, where you're at economically, that we need to support each other and we need to have these conversations. And I think that you and your group there, you know, Mr. Sims, everybody, you guys are doing a fantastic job. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Linda. I'm going to say this, though. Color does matter, though, Linda, in our community, because when a white cop is choking the hell out of a black man on TV, here come the drums. Here come the marches. Black lives matter. Ooh. Black lives matter. But when two black people are having an issue, killing each other in the street, or we're facing problems with the African-American community, where's Black Lives Matter at? So, yes, we have to take accountability in our community. Yeah. I called a couple more organizations to join us today. You responded to the call, your organization, and Annie Malone. Now, I'm not going to name the other organizations. I'm going to give you a pass this time. But the next sex trafficking show, I'm going to call you out.
Oh.
And they get grant money to help the community with this sex trafficking, but they didn't want to come on this platform. To me, you're stealing money.
Yeah.
You're stealing money.
Yeah.
So, Linda, I thank you for your organization, for being brave, stepping out, getting our voice heard to the community and saying what you're doing in the community to stop sex trafficking, human trafficking. And we're doing the same, but at the same time, though, Linda, like I say, rest in peace to Helen Keller, one of the greatest blind activists in the history.
Yeah.
And she said, you know what's worse being blind? Having sight with no vision.
Woo!
That's what them fools got, Linda. Thank you for coming to the show. We'll be back after this commercial break. Blind City, the podcast.
The views expressed on Blind City are to inspire and motivate people who are struggling through the dark times and searching for the true light.
Are you blind? Are you blind? Open your eyes. They lying every time, so I don't trust men, only trust God. I had to lose my sight before I could see the light.
This is Blind City, the podcast, with your host, Langford Cunningham.
Welcome to Blind City, the podcast. We're back. We have another special guest just rolled up to the city. She's new to the city.
Yeah.
And making great improvements and strides already. Sarah Lehman, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for pulling up to the city. Can you let the citizens know, my people know, what's the name of your organization and what are your goals?
Yeah, thanks. So I work for Annie Malone Children and Family Services. We've been around for 133 years. We've been a beacon of hope for the community of St. Louis City, and we're in the county now as well. So some of the programs that we provide here at Annie Malone include a school, a therapeutic school. We have a residential treatment center. We just completely remodeled our building to start providing that service again. And we started that. We just celebrated our year anniversary, January 6th of this year. And
Congratulations.
We have about 21 children on any given day in that program alone. And almost all of them are boys. So a lot of boys come and need a place to live and receive treatment for a lot of different areas of their life. All of them are foster care youth, and the majority are from this area. And then we have a crisis center, and our crisis center serves on any given day. We have at least 12 children, and the majority are under the age of 5. Last year, we served 114 children during the pandemic in that 12-bed program.
That's amazing.
With 53% are under 5. So that program, we're really trying to prevent them from coming into foster care. A lot of what we see is children and families that are needing a little support during, obviously, a crisis situation. And a lot of it's more poverty related or homeless, a homeless situation or large family groups. And so we try to step in that gap to say, hey, we can support you through this time, because we don't want the children to be displaced in the system. So 114 kids last year went through that program. 100 kids went through our residential treatment program just in the first year we had it open. And then we also do a lot in the community that I think people don't realize. We go in the homes of a lot of our families, and we do a lot of intensive and homework where we're teaching parenting skills. We have therapists that go in. We keep it pretty intense. Kind of our niche in the city is serving the families that everybody's kind of given up on, or they've already lost custody of their children, or they're at real high risk of losing custody. I'm real proud of our staff during the pandemic. We stayed open. You can't call yourself a crisis center in the heat of where all of this is really hitting our community and close down. So we kept our doors open throughout the process. We experienced, we had some of the same effects that our community had, and we just navigated through that to try to be a safe haven for the kids here.
And I would like to thank you for taking part in this discussion about sex trafficking as well. We're going to get more into that because I called you at the last minute and you stepped up.
Yes.
You stepped up. And I love the passion you have for these kids in this community. Mr. Sims, I called her at the last minute.
Yes, sir.
And she called me at the house after she got out about 20 meetings. And she said, Mr. Cunningham, Mr. C. Blind City, I'm down.
Solid.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
She's not like these other organizations in the community stealing money, man.
Yes.
Stealing money, talking the talk, but they not walking the walk.
Well, I might.
That's what they sound like, too. So let's talk about sex trafficking, Sarah. What are you seeing in the streets of St. Louis that may be coming through your organization?
Yeah, so Annie Malone had stepped in this space a while ago, and we've kind of changed our position on it a little bit in the sense that every single child, it is my belief, every single child that we are serving in our school and in our residential treatment facility, all of them are at risk for to be a victim of sex trafficking, and children of their age, especially the African-American girls, are just such a target for this. They think it's luxury, right? They're
Come on, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, Sarah. Yes.
Yeah. So, over my career, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a licensed clinician and have been for for a long time, been working in this field for 20 years. And prior to even coming to Annie Malone, I had a unit of girls in a residential treatment facility. And on that unit, I probably had 10 of 12 girls that were African-American. And I would say 8 of those 10 had experienced some level of sex trafficking. Rather, that's typically it can be their family that is trafficking them for drugs or trafficking them, that can be how it starts. And then the way it grows from there is really what's out there in the public, which isn't necessarily, how it starts. You see these movies where they just pick them up, off the street and they bring them in that way. But a lot of times it can start from inside the home, and they get experience that way, and they think that this is the way of life. And a lot of the kids that we've treated, even in our facility, if they come in with a Gucci purse or a Louis Vuitton, these little gifts are ways to keep them connected to that.
Let me say this, Sarah. I have to get this out. I'm a shock jock, Sarah. I'm a shock jock. I use my disability as a strength, not a vulnerability.
Absolutely.
But let me say this. Let me say this to white people, though, Sarah. Let me say this. It's a lot of white people think they don't have nothing in common with African-American children. They think, they outside the bubble looking in. But let me tell you something. You didn't look at it like that. You came in and say, I see children that need help.
Yeah.
And if we had more people in the world that looked at it like you, we can end this racism crap.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. 100%. These kids are so special, and they come to school. They show up. They come to our school. They want to be here through this pandemic. This was their one meal. Our population stayed high. I'm really honored to be a part of the solution for the city right now.
You are the
solution.
You are the solution, Sarah, because you're putting it into action.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'm definitely trying my part.
No, you're doing a great job. And if you need Blind City at any organizational conferences or meetings or festivals or anything you're doing, let me know. We're there to support you. Whatever you need for us, anything for you to promote, you make sure you come through Blind City.
Okay, will do. Will do. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you. Thank you for pulling up, Sarah. Continue what you're doing. And like I say, I just admire you so much. And like I say, if you need us for anything, we're there on the spot.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
And also vote for Tashara Jones,
right?
The new mayor of the city. Yes.
Right, making history.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk it into motion too. Yes, indeed. But thank you for pulling up. We're going to go to a commercial break. And like I say, Mr. Sims, Sarah over there at Annie Malone, man, she's making a difference.
Yes, she is.
She's doing it, man.
Doing it well.
Everybody else talking.
All they doing is talk.
We be right back after this commercial break. Mr. Sims, the triple OG. He talk like that for real. We be right back after the commercial break. Blind City, the podcast.
The views expressed on Blind City are to inspire and motivate people who are struggling through the dark times and searching for the true light.
Are you blind? Are you blind? Open your eyes. They lying every time, so I don't trust men, only trust God. I had to lose my sight before I could see the light.
This is Blind City, the podcast, with your host, Langford Cunningham.
Welcome back to Blind City. What a show, Mr. Sims.
It was wonderful.
Taking on this sex trafficking issue, black girls, MIA in the hoods across America.
Yeah.
Well, we are the therapy for these streets.
Yes.
And it's time for my partner bringing the knowledge,
Dr. Porter.
telling the truth. Dr. Porter, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Oh man, I'm feeling good, but I'm a little upset at the same time, brother. We got a lot of girls missing, man, throughout America. A lot of black girls, but especially home here in the STL, man. Berkeley, Missouri, man.
Wow.
A lot of girls have been missing over the years. Very little media attention, if any. I did call the chief of police at Berkeley. I never got a call back. I had spoken with him, and he told me some of them numbers are fabricated. And I said, well, come on the show and let's talk about it, man. Dr. Porter, what you think about that?
Well, when you are in a society, a Thelemite society, of course, a society that's Babylonian, which promotes sexual perversity. We're not living in a healthy society. This society promotes the negative at the highest level. And when you're living in that type of society, we are fueling that type of energy. And so in one sense, this society is helping to procreate these predators, because it pushes sex and debauchery at every hand. So we need to get back to being healthy people that have healthy children. And that's what we need to do. So when we get back to healthy people coming together, knowing why they have relationships, knowing why they're having children, then these predators will have a harder time to be able to take our children the way they're doing right now.
That's genius.
Talk to us.
That's genius. That's bullseye. That's bullseye. They hit the target, Dr. Porter. And you know what? That even falls in line with the men, the young men joining gangs.
Real talk.
And the young girls go to strip clubs. It seems like the young people that come from these dysfunctional homes are finding love everywhere else outside the home, but inside the home, Dr. Porter.
That's exactly right. And as I stated before, the reason they can't see the reason this is happening is because of the breakdown of the family and really the breakdown of the identity of the man and the woman. Society has been turned so upside down that there's an identity crisis. The woman doesn't know what it means to be a woman. The man doesn't know what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
So you have confused people coming together, and all they're relying on is their sensuality. In other words, we're living in a society that's so sensual that all we're doing is trying to get our sensual needs met. And when you are basing your relationship off sensuality alone, and it has no purpose, it has no structure, it has no goal, it has no agenda, it has no program to it, then all you're going to find and all you're going to get is dysfunctionality and eventually chaos. And that's what these children are being born in. They're being born in chaotic situations. And then you have all these other types of narratives that's happening because the man and the woman, they do not know how to relate to each other. Communication among adults is so terrible right now. Communication between children and parents are so terrible right now. And so you have a deculturalization of society. And when a child is born in that type of madness, it can't help but eventually become lost, confused, experiencing, as I said, not to be redundant, loneliness, abandonment, and also it's low self-esteem. Where do I fit in? Because now all I'm doing is trying to project what I see on TV, because that's the only thing that seems to be giving me attention. The only thing that's giving me a good example of what it means to be a man or a woman is what I'm seeing on TV. And we know those images, those negative images that we see a lot of times, they promote what? Materialism, sexualization. They promote all types of debauchery. And so you see these children at a young age trying to follow these things. Little girls wearing more makeup than they need to wear, dressing provocative, little boys not understanding their sexuality. They don't know, how to control themselves. You have a lack of self-control because they've not been taught. They've not been trained. And when a child is left to themselves, they're going to make serious decisions. And a lot of times they're taking on grown people attitudes and grown people responsibilities because they're dating too young. They're getting involved in relationships too young. And see, relationships or psychosis or emotions, they don't know if you're young or old, because when you get in relationships, you still feel the dynamics of a relationship, whether you're 12 or whether you're 55 or 25 or 35, the same dynamics, the responsibility, the pressure that goes along with getting in relationships, you still feel that even at a young age. And at a young age, a child is not ready for that type of dynamic, but they get into them because they're trying to fill a gap that they're not receiving at home. Dysfunctional parents cannot have children because they'll end up messing up that child, and that child could be scarred for a lifetime. This is one reason why you see bad relationships continuously to procreate in society.
Damn shame.
Real talk.
But bullseye, you hit the target, Dr. Porter. We are the therapy for these streets. And that's what's making a lot of these young kids vulnerable on the internet. And they fall for the materialism and the money. And even Instagram has for fans only, where they can swipe a credit card and watch a girl twerk and take off her clothes. I mean, it's a damn shame. I remember the commercials when we grew up back in the day, Dr. Porter. It told us not to ride with strangers. And what do we do today? Uber. Ride with strangers. Welcome to Blind City. Check out Blind City the podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or go to blindcitythepodcast.com.